And we're back. We're live, live today on this Wednesday afternoon for one of our most anticipated shows of all time.
Sorry,
Uh,
I'm just laughing that you had to look at the time to realize if it was
I did.
afternoon or not.
I have no idea what day it is anymore. My schedule's all messed up. But last night we had the opportunity to see the Batman
hmm
early. Feels so. I don't know what the word is, but it just felt special. You know,
Yes.
because it wasn't a midnight day before showing. It was 3 days before. So
Yeah,
went and
three
saw this
days.
last night in IMAX. And if you watched our at a theater review, we told you we were going to have a actual review, and
hmm
here we are.
Yep. And we get to review this new iteration. Is that right? Big words.
That worked.
New take on the Batman. And one thing I wanted to say real quick. I don't know about you, Gary, but I enjoyed they had this countdown with Batman pictures and logos and different things, and they had like trivia and all this stuff. Which the trivia could have been a little better because
Yeah,
people
seriously.
showing up to this, they know they're Batman.
Yeah,
But they had some pretty cool stuff on the screen, and then after that, they had pretty much just a DC trailer, which was fine, and then it had the typical movie theater crap, and then it was the movie. So, but I really liked what they did. Like, hey, you're at this fan event, this special fan event. Here's this, here's that. So I like the way the setup and stuff. So that was fun.
yeah, that was cool. Hats off, Regal or whoever made that. DC, whoever. It was really good. Countdown was nice, short and simple. Uh, Advertisements or whatever. Boom, movie. Let's do that more theaters, please. Uh,
Yes,
so let's dive into this thing because
let's
we
do
have
it.
been talking about and anticipating this movie since our beginning of this show.
hmm
So, yeah, what did you?
Yeah, and yeah. So we probably just start off. Well, maybe let's start off with this, Gary. Tell me what you think of
Yeah,
this.
yeah.
Let's just go ahead and address the elephant in the room.
Elephant in the room.
How was Robert Pattinson as Batman?
You want me to start?
Yeah, let's just go ahead and just start with that. What'd you think?
I thought he was great.
Mm-hmm.
I thought he did an excellent job. He brought it. He wore the cowl well, and he was dark. He was vengeful, as he says. He was
Mm-hmm.
vengeful. He acted the part really well. He had the eyes. He had the look. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I was, yeah, hats off, Mr. Pattinson, to you. You proved me wrong years ago in my garage when I sat in my garage with depression when I found out Ben Affleck was no longer Batman and you were casted. Um,
Mm-hmm.
you proved me wrong. And
Yep.
once again, Batman casting continues to prove fans wrong. We got the
Mm-hmm.
Michael Keaton casting, the Heath Ledger casting, and now you can add Robert Pattinson to that list,
Yep.
and arguably Ben Affleck too. So,
Yeah. Ben Affleck was another big one where people were like, "No."
yeah,
Yeah. You didn't get that with Christian Bale, but probably because people didn't pay attention that a new Batman was coming out and they didn't care.
yeah,
But
at the time,
at the time, yeah.
yeah,
But I agree. I thought he was a great Batman. I really liked him a lot. I was like everyone else, I was afraid he wasn't able to carry this role. But I think he did a great job. I think he's a great Batman. We'll need some time, a couple of rewatches to see where he ranks in all-time Batmans. Maybe we can do that when the Steelbook comes out, because
yeah.
I know Gary's getting the Steelbook.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And so, yeah. But
Oh,
anyways,
yeah, it is shelf worthy. Spoiler alert, shelf worthy.
yeah. So you at least know where it's at on his thing. But there you go. But yeah. So I just wanted to let's get that one out of the way. But let's go ahead and get into it. What was the good of this movie, Gary? Now, this is Batman. This is your thing. You got to start us off.
Good was it was as advertised. The trailer and Matt Reeves said this is a dark Batman. This is a film noir Batman.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a detective Batman. And it was all three of those things. And it nailed all three of those really, really well. Years ago, when I first saw the David Fincher classic Seven, I
Mm-hmm.
thought to myself, that would make a really interesting take on Batman. And this movie is not a ripoff of Seven, but you can tell Seven was an inspiration to this.
Mm-hmm.
And they did that so well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Gotham City was a character in itself in this movie. It
Mm-hmm.
was a toilet of a city, you
Yeah.
know, and it was just, we talked about Pattinson. The casting was good. I had no
Mm-hmm.
issues with any of the casting. I thought everybody did a great job. And the story was original. Well, not well. It paid homage to we talked about last night, the Long
Mm-hmm.
Halloween, pretty well.
Yep.
Um, but it did it. It was a different live action version of Batman scene, because that was my thought when they keep making Batman movies. How do you make it feel different? Well, this movie is how it's the most different Batman we've ever seen, um,
Mm-hmm.
and it delivered. And it was hyped. It was my most anticipated movie of the year, and it was hyped for those three things I mentioned. And because of that, it nailed all three of those things. I think it lived up to the hype. Not a perfect movie, which I'll talk about here in a minute,
Mm-hmm.
um, but a great Batman movie.
Yeah, yeah. I thought a couple of things. Like I said, Pattinson was great as Batman. Thought he did a great job. I did like the story. Throughout the story, I didn't mention this to you, Gary, in the theater because I was like, I knew you hadn't read the graphic novel or seen the animated movies yet. But I was thinking, like, man, this feels a whole lot like the Long Halloween, and it felt. And there's also some feelings of like Hush and stuff. But you can tell that he really like Seven was an inspiration, but also were these great graphic novels,
Mm-hmm.
and so like I felt some of that, and I thought that was really cool. And then and like what you said, the noir take, the much more detective side. I think that's been the biggest complaint of Batman fans is like in live action films we have not really seen him be a detective. He was all detective in this movie.
Yes.
I mean, yes, there's action and fighting and all that, but we really got to see him be a detective finally on the big screen, which to me was really great and really helped this movie feel different from the other Batman movies. It needed to have the much more detective side of things because especially if you watch, which I think maybe was part of the inspiration, the animated series, because there was a whole lot with the animated series too that felt similar with this movie.
Yeah.
Is that you got equal parts Batman being Batman, but Batman being detective. I mean, there were quite a few episodes where I don't think Batman even threw a punch because he was just being a detective. And then in the continuation episode, that's where he started being more fighting Batman. So being able to have that, I think, was a huge difference. And then, of course, we talked about this before. When you come to superheroes, your superhero is only as good as your villains. And this one, Penguin was a surprise to me. Colin Farrell did great. Like I really couldn't recognize him. Like you look at that
Yeah.
picture, you can't recognize him. So I thought he was great. But of course, the main villain being Riddler. It's like I loved Paul Dano's take on this, and I love that what they did with the Riddler here was really really good, and I like that he still had a little bit of the silliness
Hmm.
of Riddler, like a little bit like the things he did with his voice and how he reacted and stuff like that, and you can tell that he was trying to overcompensate for the fact that he's weak physically, but he's a superior mind, right? Like you really got to see that through the way he acted, and then the fact that he actually gave Batman riddles that he had to think about and he had to work through. I thought that was great, but then taking the serial killer tone with him, I felt to me elevated Riddler now in Batman lore as like a legit villain that needs to be dealt with and needs to be taken seriously.
Yeah, you said it best. Yeah, taken seriously, and that might be the just the casual Batman viewing people's thoughts that the is campy. The villain
Mm-hmm.
is not, and the last few live action movies we've gotten a more serious take on the villains, and yeah, I thought Paul Dano did great as the Riddler.
Mm-hmm.
What he brought, very Zodiac killer, very
Mm-hmm.
um, grounded, but also it went in like our time, like he was going on social media live and doing things, and stuff like that, and that was interesting.
Yeah.
So and yeah, Colin Farrell. I mean, I
Yeah.
was having breakfast with my brother-in-law Michael, who was with us last night, and he said I didn't know Colin Farrell was in the movie. I kept trying to figure out when he was there because the cast came on the screen before the movie and said enjoy
Right.
it. He was like, I didn't realize it was Colin Farrell till I looked down after the movie.
Mm-hmm.
It completely disappears. And apparently, HBO Max is doing a series um,
Mm-hmm.
with his Penguin. So that could be interesting.
Yeah, I know. Now that I've seen the movie, I think it could be interesting because I was wondering how in the world they're going to make this happen.
Hmm.
But seeing it now that they went ahead and like, if you will, fast forward Penguin's story a little bit to where now he's a part of that he's Iceberg Lounge and he's in the criminal underworld and stuff like that, and so he's already kind of established to where like he could cause problems, but Batman's kind of not worried about him anymore because he's kind of doing his thing, but he's more of an informant. So I like that, and then I can see now how they're able to how you can spin this off, because there's a lot you can do with just what the Penguin does and stuff like that. But as always with me, with any kind of villains only thing, especially with Batman, I'm very much like it, but it's hard to separate the two.
Yeah.
And so it is going to be interesting to see what they do with that. But I thought that was good. And also wanted your thoughts on this. What do you think of Commissioner Gordon?
Oh, I thought he was great. I thought, yeah,
Or I guess just Gordon. He's not commissioner yet. But
yeah, yeah. Him and Batman literally were in almost every scene together. And because of the detective work, I mean, Gordon, played by Jeffrey Wright, did a great job. He depended on Batman, and Batman depended on Gordon. So it told their companionship, their trust for each other really well without an origin story. And folks, if this is not an origin story, it's important you understand that going into this movie, and that's not spoiler, this is Batman 2 years into being Batman. It's important you understand that. So Commissioner Gordon is early on. He's not commissioner yet.
Yeah.
And Batman, they're kind of going together. So if we get future iterations of this universe, it'll be cool to see them continue to that bond or whatever you want to call it. So I thought Jeffrey Wright did a great job. I've been thinking all morning and all night. I have no issues with casting in this movie. I thought it was casted tremendously.
Yeah, I thought he did a great job. There was one cast I didn't care for, which I'll get into in the bad later. But but other than the one, I thought everything else was casted great. I thought he did a great Gordon. I saw the greatness in the trailer. And the fact that, like you said, where him and Batman were together so much for all the detective stuff, I think it even elevated Gordon's character even more.
Yeah.
And I liked how, like, you saw the relationship and their trust, but also a little bit of distrust. Because, like you said, they're year 2, but they're still trying to figure each other out, but they trust enough each other to work through things. And so I thought that was great. And then and I also just liked the fact that Batman struggled in this.
Yes.
Like, he struggled to make the right decision. He made some mistakes because, again, this is year 2. This is year 2 of him being Batman. And even then, like, the fact that, and no spoilers, but the fact that he had to grow from being just vengeance. And so, like, and if you know Batman, if you're a fan of Batman, you know the story, you know the lines. He's got to become something more. He's got to be a symbol. Like, you know what Batman is. But being able to see him struggle through that, because in this one, like you see in the trailers and stuff, he's just vengeance. That's all it is. And so seeing him work through a lot of that, I thought was really good too, which we are able to see a lot more into the psyche of Batman than we have, I think, in movies past, which I believe help elevate this movie a little bit more as well, to make it different from the other ones.
Yeah. And I think, you mentioned the trailer. The trailers for this movie did a great job after watching it, because there was a lot you don't see in the trailer. You see some stuff as well. There was one thing I wish I didn't see, but it is what it is. But there's a lot about the character of Batman that the trailer doesn't reveal in this movie, and it made it a much more enjoyable watching experience.
Yep. So that's all the good. Now it's time to get into probably Gary's least favorite part, the bad. What was the bad? What was the part that we just thought, like, this did not work? Go ahead, Gary. Give it to me.
And it was something you and I had discussed and we were worried about, and I'm just going to say it. It was too long. And I wish I wasn't saying this, because if it just a little bit too long. Probably about 25 minutes could have been cut from it. Yeah. I really felt that runtime. Maybe it was because of where we were sitting, folks. I bought and we were in IMAX on row C. Didn't realize how close you were, but we watched the movie like this, and it's almost a 3-hour movie, so my neck was hurting, and I'm old. Maybe that's why I felt the runtime so much, but it was just a tad long. It felt like it didn't know how to end, and when it did end, it was a little anticlimactic to me.
Yeah, what was it Michael said? Did he get notes from Peter Jackson or something like that?
It was definitely it was like Return of the King ending, and
all 6 of them.
Yes, and Peter Jackson, man, that was the third of an epic trilogy. You had the right to do that. This is the first movie. Let's slow it down a little bit, Matt. Come on, pace yourself, sir. But yeah, that's probably my biggest issue. It was a little too long. There's a scene towards the end that I could have done without,
Yeah.
And something
Well,
Michael
there.
pointed out to me this morning that I mean I noticed, but I kind of forgotten about, and all the it had more language than I expected. I knew it was
Mhm.
going to be a dark movie, but I didn't care for some of the language. It
Yeah.
was there's quite a few GDs in there, so be advised, people.
Yeah, yeah. I will say, like I'm with you. It was a little long. Definitely will not be asking for a Matt Reeves cut.
No, we don't need that.
We don't want the 4 hour cut.
We're good now.
This was way more. So
Yeah,
that whole episode we did about a 4 hour cut and what we were worried about,
we're good.
they
Yeah,
could have cut more.
yeah, yeah.
They could have cut more. I agree. It should have like we talked. We can't talk about the ending we wish we wanted because this is non spoiler.
Non spoiler.
But we do have a different ending that we came up with based on what we were given that we think would have worked a whole lot better and to set up more movies because last I heard they are planning on making this its own trilogy.
Yeah,
So I was very excited to hear that, especially after seeing it. But yeah, it was just a little too long. There was stuff in it that just didn't make sense to me. And this is, I guess, where I'm gonna go ahead and bring out this point is like Catwoman. I did like for me. I'm not a huge Zoe Kravitz fan as an actress. But granted, I've only seen her. The only other thing I've seen her in that I remember is X-Men First Class.
good class.
And she didn't have a big role, but I didn't really care for her. But like seeing her in this and in that, I felt like she was still the same person. So for me, it was kind of like, all right, whatever. But what she did worked in this movie. Like, so don't get me wrong. It worked in this movie and it worked for what she was given. I just personally didn't care for it. And I think thinking about it more, I think the reason why I didn't care for it is because I feel that if you cut out the Catwoman stuff, nothing in this movie changes. And I think we talked about that last night. Yeah, there might be some things if when you guys watch this movie, you might think, oh, but Catwoman needed to be there for this to happen. It could have happened either way, in different ways. And Gary and I thought of them last night.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I didn't care for her version of Catwoman. I don't really think it was her performance. I was think it was more the fact that the Catwoman just wasn't needed in this movie.
Yeah.
But since they are pulling from the Long Halloween, it's kind of weird, but it just, but that's where like if you cut the Catwoman stuff out, the movie becomes probably 30 minutes shorter,
Yeah.
and it doesn't feel as long.
Better.
Yeah, and so you can piece some of that stuff together, and so that's where to me I just felt like those things didn't work. But going back to sorry, I should have said this in the good. John Turturro or Turturro, however you say. I'm not going to say who he plays. He is in this movie. He is absolutely fantastic
He does, yes.
in this movie.
I didn't know he was in this movie, and he's one of those actors. Every time I see him, it's like, oh, he's awesome.
Yeah. And so, and with him being in this, even though, again, I just felt like Catwoman wasn't needed. And Catwoman is what made this movie too long. Yeah. And so that's where, for me, it was like, it just kind of took me out a little bit when she was on screen because it just, and their relationship kind of felt forced.
It was a little forced, yeah.
And I didn't care for that either. And again, maybe because they just, I don't know what their idea was. It just felt forced. It didn't feel like it needed to be there. So for me, I could have done without that, even though this is honestly a sick shot that we're seeing right here.
Yeah.
I like that picture a lot. But it just, so that was kind of my thing on the bad is I just didn't really care for those things, especially when you're already like, but everything outside of Catwoman, everything else, Penguin stuff, Riddler, the stuff with Gotham, all that stuff tied well together. And it just felt like they just inserted Catwoman because they wanted it.
Yeah.
And so I didn't really care for that. And then of course the 6 endings wasn't needed. And like 2 of the endings could have very easily been like an after credit scene and they just shoved them in the movie. Yeah. But so that was kind of the stuff I just didn't really care for.
My issue, and I think the Catwoman stuff, I think there a lot of their scenes together, they went on very long.
Mm-hmm.
There were shots that lingered. There were, and that added to the runtime. And yeah, so that honestly, that's my biggest complaint, the runtime. And like Zoe Kravitz, she wasn't bad. She was just kind of like, oh yeah, she's in this movie, and I thought she did. She's fine job.
Yeah.
Catwoman, Selena Kyle. But yeah, I mean, if she wasn't in it, not much changes. I agree with that.
Yeah, and so that's what I struggled with a lot of that, and there's just so much more. So, like that was perfectly fine with it, and so I had struggled with some of that.
Going back to the good really quickly, because I didn't say anything about it, but even though it was too long and it should have been paced a little bit better towards the end, I thought Matt Reeves did a great job directing this.
Mm-hmm. And writing it or co-writing it.
Yeah, It was written well, it was directed well, and the score was very good.
Oh yeah, very very
Great
good.
use. I love that new Batman theme. Great use of "Something in the Way," a classic
Hmm.
Nirvana song that we heard in the first trailer.
Hmm.
Um, so
Yeah.
so yeah, so
The
I
cinema,
felt like we'd be
the
remiss.
cinematography for a lot of stuff was really good.
Yeah,
Now I did talk last night. I felt like this. A lot of the movie was shot like the sticky third person, like almost in your face the entire movie. But after asking others, they
yeah,
said, "Nah, it wasn't like that. It was probably our seats."
yeah.
So that's probably why. So I'll watch it again. But there was a lot of shots that were like really beautiful
Yeah.
and really cool looking.
I was talking to
Um,
my brother-in-law this morning at breakfast, and he said, um, when you go to IMAX, row F or back is the best way to go. Anything
mhm.
before F, you're going to be looking up. So now I know.
Yeah. Yeah. And listen, in Gary's defense, usually I get the tickets, I get our seats, and I
I
just
went
send
rogue,
Gary the
folks.
stuff.
I went
Yeah, he,
rogue.
yeah, he went rogue. He panicked. He did his own thing, but he's learning. That's all that matters.
Yeah.
Um,
But we were there.
yeah, we were there, and so I guess I'm more just final thoughts. I mean, there was a lot to like about this. There's other things that there's probably we didn't care for that we can't talk about right now because it would be spoilers. This
Yeah,
is the best we can do without spoilers, but yeah. So a couple things, I guess, as you go to watch it this weekend, if you didn't get a chance to see it last night, keep this in mind. This is a Batman year two. He's
yes.
struggling with a lot of stuff, and if you're a person where you're thinking like, I want to see a good balance of Bruce Wayne and Batman, you're not going to get it because
There yet.
Bruce Wayne is struggling being Bruce Wayne
Mhm.
and dealing with his past. But so you do get something that I thought was great. That is usually the complaint in my mind for most superhero movies. One complaint I have and other nerds like myself have is these actors find every opportunity possible to take their freaking mask off
Mhm.
when they're Spider-Man, Batman, whoever, and it drives us nuts. We want to see you in full costume, dagnabbit.
Yeah.
And so it drives us nuts. You do not get that here. You
No.
do get Batman. And
Yeah.
he is in costume almost the whole movie, which is great.
The what I am thinking they're going to do, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be a trilogy, which I hope it is while the other ones he's figuring out how to be Batman, which he is still figuring out some Batman stuff here. I think in this he's going to be figuring out how to be Bruce Wayne.
Hmm.
Because there's that conflict, and it's established really early on. Like he's
Yeah.
pretty much like Pattinson. He stays Batman. Like even the few scenes he is Bruce Wayne, he's like, oh, he's still Batman.
He's still Batman. Yeah.
It's like I said last night on the way home. I was like, how is the depressed emo kid in the corner? I'm pretty sure that's Batman. I
Yeah.
was like,
Yeah.
which I'm hoping that they will build on that.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah. Very, very, very emo-ish Batman. Like, not like crying and stuff, but there is a whole lot of brooding.
a lot of
There is a lot of brooding.
which I mean, and I thought about this more last night. It was like when I got home because it was like the city is in such bad condition. Like this,
Yeah.
it makes Batman Begins look like paradise. The way
Mhm.
Gotham is just completely falling apart. So there's really
Depraved is the best way to put it.
yeah, and another thing, I had a little bit of David Dunn vibes from his Batman
Hmm.
early on when he was walking around. No spoilers, but I wanted to mention that because we're big Unbreakable fans. But
Yeah.
so anyway, I've rambled long enough.
Yeah,
So,
but I just want people to know: do not go in expecting another Batman movie like you've seen.
no,
This is very different. It's very gritty.
Yeah.
It's more thriller
Mhm.
than it is like superhero movie. Like it's almost hard to put this as a superhero movie category because it's a lot more suspense thriller in my opinion
Really
than
is.
it is like this isn't Spider-Man No Way Home. This isn't even the Dark Knight trilogy. Like this takes it even further of gritty and dark and realism. I told you last night, Gary. I'm like, after this movie, I can actually believe someone with money can become Batman.
Yeah.
Because they made so many things
really did.
legitimate, and
Yeah.
so I was, I don't think the whole cape can ever be legitimate, but whatever.
Yeah, that's the movie magic right there.
Yeah.
But I will say before we go to rating, I just thought of this. And another thing of realism, when Batman shows up, he makes people uncomfortable.
Yes.
Like when he shows up on crime scenes, the cops are like, "What is this freak doing here?" And
Hmm.
I thought that was great because that would be the reaction if
Yeah.
someone shows up and he's doing the things they're not doing as cops. They would have that reaction.
Oh yeah.
There's no friends in this movie except Alfred and
Yeah.
Gordon.
Who was great, and that's part of the bad, Andy Serkis was great, but part
Yeah,
of the bad, there wasn't enough
he
of
wasn't.
Alfred. Andy Serkis as Alfred. So it wasn't enough.
Yeah,
Just cut some Catwoman junk and give me more Alfred. You probably
yeah.
would
Let's
have had
get
a
the
better
Alfred
movie.
cut.
Yeah,
Come
there we
on,
go.
you know.
Yeah.
So you ready to rate this bad boy?
Yeah, let's rate this, and I'm curious what your thoughts are. I think I may surprise you. I don't know. We'll see.
Okay.
But so I guess maybe we should, since you're the Batman guy, maybe we should let everyone be in suspense for you,
Okay.
for your rating.
All right.
'Cause I think last time I did the Spider-Man one
did the
second.
Spider-Man, yeah.
So since I was a Spider-Man guy, so this is okay. I'm gonna have to cheat a little bit, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry, everyone. You guys know how we feel about our ratings.
Eddie Guerrero used to say, "If you're not cheating, you're not trying."
Yeah, there you go. And remember, a 1 is complete, utter hot garbage, dumpster fire trash. 5 is a masterpiece. And for me, Gary, I give this a high 3.
Okay.
A high 3. This is what I'm saying. I'm cheating. I'm
Okay.
cheating because we know a 3 for us is like it was good. It was
I
fun,
realized
right?
we were on the Schmoes No Network all of a sudden.
I know. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
I'm good.
But-
I hear you.
But to me, it wasn't a good movie. It wasn't a great movie, but it was a very good movie.
Okay.
And so this is where I'm like, maybe we need to revisit our rating system. But this is a very good movie, but with some of the stuff we talked about, and unfortunately some of the stuff we can't. But some of the stuff we talked about, it kept me from moving it into the 4 as a great movie.
Okay.
So that's why I'm like, this is a very good. Like, it has to be a high 3. Like, it's very close to a 4. If they would have fixed some things, it would have been a 4. So that's where I put it.
And you'll update us if future viewings bump it up or down.
Yeah.
So,
I'm gonna have to. But
so I'm gonna be a little bit like you were with Godzilla versus Kong.
all right.
Give it a 5, but I'm gonna give it a 4.
Okay. Whoops.
Because I did have my issues with it. It's far from a masterpiece. It's not a perfect movie, but the Batman stuff in this movie kept it at 4 for me. And so yeah, the Batman fan in me has it saying it's great. It's got its flaws, but it lived up to the hype. As a Batman fan, I was very pleased. It'll be on the shelf one day, and I want to see more from this universe.
Yeah. Agreed. It'll definitely be on my shelf when it comes out. I will be rewatching this as much as you can rewatch a 3-hour movie.
And folks, don't give Efren any gruff about 3's a good rating. That's solid. That's if we're going to 10, that's 7 out of 10. That's pretty good.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. I know. I mean, it was great. It wasn't by any means a fun movie. Like, when you think of fun movies, it wasn't fun. But you were on the edge of your seat the entire time, and it doesn't let up start to finish.
I see it because I would have flipped over backwards because I was.
Yeah.
So
I know, right? Yeah, poor Gary.
My headrest.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, I that's just where I was at, man. I just wanted to see a little bit more out of it. I mean, a tighter movie. If it would have been a tighter movie, I think it would have gotten a 4 out of me. I think that's what it comes down to. If it was a little bit tighter, it would have been a 4. But since it wasn't, you felt the length. So I was like,
I heard somebody say earlier. I thought it was like they were trying to do a mini series in 3 hours, in almost 3 hours. So
that's fair.
I do 9 episodes of a mini series. And that made a lot of sense because especially towards the end. But anyway, go see it. Let us know what you think. Comment below, subscribe, share. Go see it for yourself. Hopefully this movie makes a ton of money, which I'm sure it will.
Yeah.
And we'll keep getting more of these Batman movies.
Yeah, and hopefully they'll build on top of this and give us some very interesting villains and very interesting, new direction and what they're taking the Batman. That's the thing. Even though we have our issues with this movie, there is a whole lot of potential in this series. And I hope they 100% say the heck with DCEU. This is its own thing. Yes. Let this be its own thing and make it an awesome Batman trilogy or whatever they're going to do with it.
I think at some point, maybe soon, we'll sit down and do a spoiler review, and we can talk about our predictions on what they will do. With this universe. So, All right. Well, thanks for watching, folks.
All right. We'll see you guys next time.